Happy Thanksgiving week, everybody. I'm gonna have to pause and remember what to give thanks for this year, but there's plenty to be thankful for, and hope you're thankful for this too. I thought this might be a still not too intrusive time to get together and have sort of a lighthearted chat about ideas that I spotted this year in my appeal exchange that I just thought were noteworthy to talk about. I think I've really made a breakthrough with this get together because I have recruited so many people to do the talking. I may finally achieve the objective of not having to say anything at some point, which should satisfy many people tuning in. So we'll get to those folks in a minute. Let me say hi to my associate, co-pilot, partner in crime, Margaret Neitzel from Seattle University. Hi, Margaret.
Hello, Bob. It's great to be here. Coming to you all from a cabin near Mount Rainier, getting a jump on my vacation this week, but had to make time for this session. That's how exciting some of these appeal ideas are.
This was not an invitation to brag, Margaret, about where you're sitting in Mount Rainier, but I'm glad you're here and thank you for doing this. So a little bit of context. Margaret and I are just recovering from a conference that we hosted on Zoom, not even 2 weeks ago, I don't think, Margaret, right? We successfully accomplished about 40 sessions. The only one we did not is the one that you're going to see right now. So kind of like elections these days, Margaret, this is the conference that never seems to end. But if we get through this session, then I think we're officially finished with the PNW Engage conference for 2020. So Margaret and I are still trying to end the conference. But Margaret, thank you for doing this. And we're going to have fun in this session. Believe it or not, I've gotten so organized for once that I've actually already uploaded a PDF of all the slides that you're going to see in this session. So feel free to access that if you'd like. There's going to be a couple of shout outs in this session for QR codes and people that love them. And so if you're partial to using QR codes to access things these days, there's your QR code link right there. I suppose I should leave that up for a second just for anybody who's copying or scanning or whatever. And there's still people showing up in the waiting room. And so we'll give them another second too. Margaret, what will your Thanksgiving dinner be in your glorious cabin at the foot of Mount Rainier?
Yeah, it's just my husband and I and our dog. So we're just going to roast a small chicken, and then we are doing sweet potato au gratin and some roasted Brussels sprouts.
That doesn't sound half bad. So yeah. In keeping with the scaled down motif in the Burdenski house, for the first time ever, I'm roasting a duck this year. So instead of a 14-pound turkey, I have a 4-pound duck. And I'm quite clueless about what to do about it, but we'll check back. We'll see how that goes. Okay.
I have never made a duck, so I'm excited to hear about that.
Neither have I. Okay, just a little bit of context about the history of this get-together. For more than 20 years now, I have hosted an annual exchange of samples and ideas, letters, all things related to annual giving. This originally started because I was a man on a mission with Case, writing books about innovations in annual giving, and I needed some good window on seeing who was up to what every year and who was actually innovating something in fundraising. Margaret, I just happen to have this sitting here because I'm boxing up all of our gifts from our conference. This is one of those tape things used to tape up boxes. And this is actually how the appeal exchange started, because it was all direct mail samples, and people would box up a case of their samples and send it to me, and then I would have to open every box and repack, with one sample from here, one sample from here, one sample from here, and it was a lot of work, but it was worth it, and it was fascinating. And any of you annual giving old timers out there can probably still remember going through the stuffing party and the box opening party, and that was all great fun. But I was not disappointed when PDFs showed up and also digital strategies. And pivot is one of the words of the year, I guess. We sort of pivoted to save a tree and share PDF samples, but that's some of the history about how all this started. Our big banquet to show off this year's samples, of course, can't happen this year. And if you don't know, that's a joke too. We show this slide every year. There's never been a banquet, but imagine the fun that would be if we actually had an awards banquet for the best samples of the annual Giving Appeal Exchange. But this is a reminder of your invitation to join us this year if you haven't already. Part of what made this session a good idea was to promote. Don't just be a lurker, be a joiner. And look at all the fun that we're having, frolicking, sharing examples about who's doing what creative in annual giving. So really, there's no deadline for joining for 2021. I will send reminders to do it. There's no cost to it, and hope you can share some of your brilliant envelope pushing along with what you'll see in this session. Okay. Margaret chuckles when I show these next couple of slides because she appreciates that I'm trying to just set a context. I don't want to walk through these chapter and verse, but if you've caught my act before, you may recognize this slide which refers to things that just haven't changed a whole lot since the Annual Giving Appeal Exchange started 21 years ago. And the things that I look for when I decide that's a good idea, we should talk about that. I want to hear their reasons about why they worded things that kind of a way. So I got to have a motivating message. I have to have an identifiable segment audience I'm trying to reach. I have to know how to reach the audience in this multi-channel world we're all in. I have to figure out how to get the money as efficiently and successfully as I can. I need to show appreciation to all those donors because I don't want to take their feelings for granted. And last but not least, I need to measure what on earth I just did so that I'm better next time, which was true when you were counting just the BRE envelopes that came back into the mailbox into the office. And it's true today when we're talking about click-through rates and exposure rates and all the other metrics that we have in a digital world. So there's that bit of context just to let you know where I'm coming from. Then there's this slide too, which outlines all the different themes that I see being used in annual giving appeals most of the time. Whether you're invoking people's sense of gratitude and giving something back, or it's just tradition to make a gift to the annual fund, or wasn't that a great couple years of your life, or help us with our students, especially this year with emergency funds and things like that. Specificity is really another way to refer to crowdfunding. And do I have some specific project that you might be interested in? Positive urgency is another way of talking about a giving day or some other ticking clock. It's December 31st, it's June 30th, it's Groundhog Day, whatever, just kind of nudge people into some action. The peer voice is very important in what we do in education. We'll show some examples of that today. The affinity piece, if you get beaten up for being too healthy of an institution and too successful of an institution, I don't think you should apologize for that. Help a good institution become an even better institution by making a gift, and appreciate that we're not a sinking ship, but help us with that margin of excellence of what we're trying to do. The stewardship piece, I already said. How do you give people hugs, and how does that get reflected in our appeals? Transaction, down at the bottom, I've got a couple of transaction examples to show this year of whether it was address labels or holiday gift tags. And this year we're going to look at Legos and Rubik's Cubes. Socks has been a big transaction thing over the last couple of years. And last but not least, which sort of includes socks too, I think, other than anything else we've talked about on this list, what just seems to catch people's imagination, right? And sort of inspire them to chuckle to themselves and make a gift. By the way, Margaret, for me, the novelty thing goes way back to the Ice Bucket Challenge. That was, maybe about 10 years ago now on Facebook, where people were dumping buckets of ice water over their heads. And I just saw yesterday, one of the people who initiated that, I'm feeling silly for being ignorant. It might have been the beneficiary of the idea, just passed away yesterday. So a tip of my hat to that idea. Last I saw, it had raised, gosh, like $50 million or something.
We still reference it all the time, the hope for things to go viral, like the Ice Bucket Challenge. I think that's where video comes in, at least at Seattle University. We try to pack our novelty into funny little videos or graphics.
Yeah, and it keeps me up awake still, because just just when you think you've figured out every creative possibility for what we do, or that we've thought this all through completely, something else pops up that says, oh no, you haven't. Look what they're doing over there. Here's the folks that I'm going to be interviewing and introducing. And you'll meet them all in progression. I think I may have wound up with way more to talk about than this hour and 15 minutes is going to allow. Any one of these folks probably deserves their own Zoom conversation for an hour about what they're up to. So for those of you who have to duck out, you don't need to announce it, but thanks for catching this. Anybody who can stick around, I'll probably go a little bit longer just to give everybody a chance to talk about what they're up to. And be sure you get this slide if you want to follow up with anybody and ask some deeper dive questions. Margaret's going to be my co-pilot, and keep an eye on the chat. You're welcome to put questions in the chat, but understand we may not get to a lot of them, just because I want to give all these folks a chance to state their piece about their program. Okay, Margaret, am I forgetting anything? You're my conscience.
That sounds perfect. And we've still got people flowing in. We're at about 215 folks. Good to see all of you.
Thanks for making me nervous about all of it. Okay, let's start. It is my pleasure to introduce a woman with what I think I want to say is a good Polish name, just like mine. So Megan, apologies if I don't get this right this time. I will get it right from now on. Is it Megan Rasky from the University of Chicago? Megan, are you there?
Yeah, it's really close. It's actually Rasky, like rye bread, and it is Polish. That's my.
You're being very polite saying that was close, but thank you. and where I'm sitting in Chicago. Where are you sitting where everything is in bloom? It's not at my house.
I mean, that is University of Chicago behind me, but I'm actually sitting in Indiana because we're going to be remote until at least April. So yeah. I'd show you the background, but it's a lot of junk because I have kids, and so there's drawing pad and a bunch of other stuff.
That's all right. I get it, and thank you for doing this. And we need to get together socially distanced in person someday, because I sure do appreciate what you're doing. Anybody who knows Colin Hennessy, Megan is part of that team, and so I have annual great respect for everything you guys are up to. And this year has been no disappointment. Do you mind if I jump into it? Here's what caught my eye that Megan's up to. Megan, would you start with your Rubik's Cube appeal?
Sure. So this is our Rubik's Cube appeal. Anyone who knows University of Chicago knows that we do like to do an incentive now and then. I can see some of my friends from Rochester on the phone. I get both of you in the Casey and Megan. You've heard most of this before, but University of Chicago is a participation-based program. So we do a lot of incentive work at least 2 to 3 times a year, because we do want our annual fund donors to make a gift of any size. And then we have a very wonderful team that works on upgrading those gifts. So we have 2 incentives to share with you today that were really successful. This one is our Rubik's Cube. This went in August of 2019. We hand designed it with some of our graphic designers and an incredible vendor. And they made each one of these cubes really kind of fun. And we did it in a mail and an email campaign to our college donors in the fall. Lie buns, side buns, and lapsed all the way back. So we did it as a postcard and as a mail back in the mail and an email. And we did several social campaigns around it as well.
And for people who might not know of a vendor off the top of their head of where to go to get a Rubik's Cube, anybody you want to give a shout out to?
I've shared this vendor a million times and I can't say enough about them, but if you haven't met Smartfish out in Boston, not only are they a wonderful vendor to work with, they are free. They'll search for all of your stuff for you and give you a deck of viable premiums or freemiums. And they are also a fulfillment house. So for us, we have everything shipped to them And then we just send them a list of our donors and they fulfill them at a couple dollars per donor. So it ends up being Smartfish, Mary, Smartfish. I can send a link out to Bob and Margaret. We work with Jen at Smartfish and they are lovely.
Thank you for that. And I like that you frame this as a participation idea, because I think that's the most important thing at the end of the day, that there are still plenty of institutions sort of charged with a participation goal. And so, you know, I guess at the end of the day, I might prefer that people were just generous without any strings attached, but you're bringing them in the door, aren't you? And I guess then the clock starts ticking on retention. Am I right? I mean, this is sort of what's descended from address labels at a lot of other institutions, you know, in terms of if we can just get you to pop up and reveal your semi-interest, then we'll convert you to more pure outright giving in the future. Am I saying all that right?
100%. We just had a big volunteer program where we were talking to like the head of our LA club, and she 100% goes, I give for the swag every year, but then I make another gift at giving day or something along those lines. But she said, I'm a swag junkie. So if you're going to offer it, that's what's going to make me make a gift a little earlier, which is why we tend to roll our big incentives out in the fall, just to get them in early so that we can ask a second time if we want to later on in the year.
So, and if the Rubik's Cube is not enough, here's another one you guys came up with, and I can't wait to ask where you go to get this. So this is a location on campus. Talk about this one too. If the Rubik's Cube didn't do it for you, maybe the Lego set will.
So this is actually one of our favorites, and it was a bucket list item for us for years. Cobb Gate is a notorious area on campus. It's where all of our new graduates, whether you're an undergrad or grad, pass through at some point during their career there. And so Cobb Gate is infamous for anyone and everyone on campus. It's one of our initial structures at the campus. And then this is our minifigure.
That's your dean.
That's the dean of the college. He's been around for about 25 years, and he is really well loved. And so this campaign was unique in the fact that, like, yes, the Lego was very cool to create, and that was a really cool process for us internally to do, and work with the vendor to recreate exactly what it would look like. And then we did an upgrade ask. So if you could have the gate for one cost, but if you want a Dean Boyer and his notorious bike, because that's how he gets around campus and has for years.
I figured that out.
Yeah. Then we did that as well, and did an upgrade ask. You had to give a gift of $75 to get both. So that worked out really well for us too. And this went in only a postcard mailer because the timing, we had to switch. We had initially done a different incentive for this time frame, and at the very last minute couldn't get approval on it. So we worked with a tremendous vendor to help us switch gears on a dime to the Lego, and get it out and ready in time. So we didn't have time for a self mailer back, but we did it in a postcard, an email, and on social. And I can tell you, let me tell you the vendor. The vendor was a lovely group here in Chicago called Brick Loot. That's Brick and then L-O-O-T. It's actually started by a 12-year-old here in Chicago that would mail out subscription kits. So we love this story too. And then that grew into a store that grew into a product that they could work with corporate or other vendors on to help us create exactly what we wanted in a really one-on-one environment. And then they boxed it for us and created the labels and everything. It was beautiful. They were wonderful.
Brick Loot. Brick Loot, does that mean they exclusively do customized Lego sets like this?
They do. So the way that we got around, and we got a lot of questions about the licensing of the term Lego. So just to share, they created everything from Legos. So if you see how we framed it and all of our creative there, it is made with 100% Lego bricks. But we didn't say it's from Lego. If we had done the Lego route, it would have taken 3 years and lots more money. But they order all the custom pieces from Lego. And so we had released to say it was made with 100% Lego bricks.
When you sent this to me, there was a note that we might rethink the $55 amount. And so I was curious, does that mean you should have requested more or less or what?
I will tell you, I pulled up some of my metrics. Let me just see if I can tell you right now what our average gift was overall. It was our average gift was $185. So although we
Wow.
asked for 75, people gave more. And yet I want to be really open. We probably should have asked for a little bit more. The Lego doesn't quite fit into the token incentive law that we all kind of abide by, and
Yeah.
for taxes, it was a little bit more than that. So we brought in more than enough to cover the cost of what it was internally, but we did have to do some special receipting about X amount of your gift is not tax deductible because Lego costs a little bit more for the customization. So if we had made
So-
it more money, we may not have had to do that. And Colin is often talking to me about finding ways to make it not a $55 minimum for the token. So I would have to say we'd probably explore maybe a lower cost one as well.
And for Megan's benefit, we will be editing out this portion of her conversation. You're a perfect example of somebody you could spend an hour. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of questions. I'm afraid to look in the chat about this, but for somebody who's thinking about doing, sort of the I don't know what you would call it, really niche incentives like this. Any words of wisdom?
Oh, talk to your gift administration and get them on board. That's a big one.
Get one of these.
Maybe, yeah, one of those two. I would say it is, for everyone asking, the easiest way I can explain it is that it should be a percentage of the cost of the item. The donor gift needs to be X amount. We always try to live by the token rule of making sure the incentive is less than $9 and the donor gift needs to be more than 55. And those are kind of our metrics, to not have to tell them it's not tax deductible, their gift, for instance, that leaves it tax deductible. But I am not a tax consultant or a tax lawyer. I just said, I would leave that in, please. That's a lot of incentive.
That's all right. We'll edit that out too.
Thank you.
It's I appreciate everything you guys do. Anything you want to tantalize us that might be coming over the hill for next year, or anything else you did this year that you're proud of?
I will tell you, and I said this for my friends who are at other conferences with me, we have had an immense amount of success with puzzles. So we are running a puzzle campaign right now, and the Lego was an extension of that. We had run a puzzle the year before that was wildly successful, like over 1,000 gifts in its initial launch, and many more throughout the rest of the year. And then the Lego is supposed to be an extension, like that's the next level of puzzle, right? This was also very successful. But we are in the middle of a puzzle now, which is like our second of, we're going to do a series of 4. And it has been live for about 2 weeks, and we are already at over 600 gifts to just that incentive. So if you think people are puzzled out, I want to say they're not. And that's been our motto for later. And I can also share a really wonderful vendor for that too. They need lots of lead time, but they make the puzzles super affordable, and it gets to you in the time frame that you need.
And I couldn't have choreographed this better. This is the puzzle that I just got from being a donor to my alma mater, Miami University. So glad I could point that out. Now, did you skip past the sock phase, or have you already been through the sock phase?
We did socks in like FY14. So I would say we were, and then we did them again in FY18. So we gave a breather in between socks, and they were just as successful then, but we saw some sock fatigue back in 14, 15. And so we laid off of them for a few years, brought it back. It was great again. Maybe we'll do it again in another year or two and bring it back too.
Sock fatigue. That means something different in my house. But Megan, thank you for that. And tell Colin and the rest of the team that we said hey, and have a happy holidays. Margaret, anything I'm forgetting before we move along?
No, the only question, if you guys wanted to touch super briefly, I'm hearing so much about retention, but what about acquisition? I feel like we have focused our transactional type pushes on trying to boost acquisition. Were they successful for you?
Excellent.
Yeah, I actually pulled those numbers up for this too. So I would say on the Lego, we had an 88% retained, 10% reactivated, and 2% activated. So had never made a gift before, and that was out of almost 1,000 gifts. So that's a pretty nice reactivation pool.
Excellent.
And it was about the same for the Legos. We had 12% reactivated and 88% retained. sorry, that was puzzle. No, sorry, Rubik's Cube. I misspoke. So Rubik's Cube was 88 and 12.
And that's always kind of the expected pushback when you talk about premiums or incentives like this is, well, how's the retention rate? And my opinion is that just because you do something like this to get people to raise their hand or come in the door, that doesn't excuse us from our stewardship responsibility, just like they're any donor, right? So, I mean, you've got that moment to throw your arms around them and show them the love and turn this into a relationship. And so I don't think just having something clever like this diminishes our responsibility as an institution to steward everybody who gives. Okay, Megan, thank you. See you around town, hopefully sometime soon. And you've already referenced my friends at the University of Rochester who are next on my list. Let's see, Megan, Casey, and Amy. Do I have anybody here in this chat? Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hi. So do I have all three?
Yes.
Amy, apologies to you, first of all. I want to say also my fellow Polish friend, and I did not mean to leave your last name off of the introduction slide. I just wanted to make sure I was typing it right and then completely forgot about it. But
that's okay.
Thanks to all of you
It
guys.
happens all the time.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, sort of following on the theme of incentives and what gets people in the door as a donor. The first thing I wanted to ask about is time to get comfy for a cause. And I forget which one of you wants to talk about that, but sort of following on from Megan's theme at the University of Chicago, would somebody say a few words about this?
Sure. This is actually my initiative, and I have to give Megan from Chicago a huge shout out because this was kind of inspired by her when I first came on to this position. We had a meeting with her, and they just have some really great ideas. So this kind of was sparked from University of Chicago. So this is really a program that we created for young alumni. Our young alumni donor numbers were sort of, I don't want to say dropping, but people were not as excited about giving. So we tried to come up with something that would just spice things up a little bit. And, not sort of the traditional tchotchkes to give away when somebody gives, but actually give them something that they are purchasing and that they want. And what better to do that with than apparel. And actually it was very timely since everybody now lives in sweatpants and sweatshirts all day long. So basically last year's campaign was our pilot program. We had them for sale for $35, shipping and handling included, with $10 of each purchase going towards our student emergency fund as a gift. And we gave people the option to add on a gift after the fact. And many people did, whether it was $5, $10, some people tacked on like $100. But it was really geared towards young alumni. It was a digital only campaign. We only did social media ads, social media posts and emails. And we had some great results. I'm trying to pull them up from last year. We had 185 pants sold, 160 total donors. About 25% of the donors were first-time donors, and almost half of them were young alumni specifically. So the numbers were a little bit small last year, but we actually just started it this year. It was October 21st through November 2nd. So tried to wrap it up right before the election, which was perfect timing. But we actually did sweatshirts this year. I'm sporting my sweatshirt. We did sweatshirts, we did embroidered sweatshirts. So doing sort of a nicer item, still less than what it would cost if you purchased directly through the bookstore. We did them for $40 with, again, $10 going towards the student emergency fund. I had some of our young alumni council members act as like social media influencers and posting to social media, tagging their friends, just getting some more organic content out there for the university social media pages to be resharing as well. And those got some really great engagement numbers. But overall, this past year, we actually sold 358 sweatshirts, and we raised just over $6,000 for the student emergency fund, with add-on gifts totaling just over $2,500. So it was really successful. I think that we learned a lot from our first year, and we're able to, make some changes and involve our young alumni council even more, which I think really paid off. So
it all sounds terrific, and thank you for sharing all that. The construction of this might be slightly different from what people are familiar with seeing. First of all, let me ask, how important is participation at the University of Rochester?
Very important.
Okay, so once again, it's an institution who just wants that broad base of support, right?
Yes.
And so, we'll think about any strategy that can help us with our donor numbers. So I first started to see this a couple of years ago. I think it was Clemson University that sent out an appeal that offered you the opportunity to buy a Clemson backpack at a special rate if you became a donor to the annual fund. And certainly a lot of alumni events started to build in your gift to the annual fund as part of the registration fee for an event. So you're just saying that we will give $10 of the purchase price of this as your gift to annual giving. And so my advancement services friends sometimes get grouchy about, what's the tax deductibility of this, but you're not exactly saying that this is a reward for a gift. You're saying we're selling you this and we're going to take $10 and put it as a philanthropic gift. Am I saying all that right?
Yeah. Yep. So when we set a premium amount on the back end for all of our, for this campaign specifically, so people actually get their gift receipt once they purchase, and it comes out to $10 plus whatever their additional gift is that they choose or don't choose to add on.
Okay. And so that causes anybody's head to not fall off who's worried about the gift processing and valuation and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, we have their full support with it, and I think it's a lot easier because we actually house the sort of dollar exchange on our own servers. So it's not like we're going through a second company and having to switch all the funds around. It's sort of all coming to us, and then we can sort it out on the back end, which I think makes things a little bit easier.
Okay.
I saw somebody had asked about our fulfillment company. So we actually used Smartfish last year, and Smartfish was amazing. Loved them. Would use them again. But we actually are, we have a contract with Barnes and Noble, who actually does is our bookstore.
Yeah.
So we had to go through them this year, which was fine. But it worked pretty much the same. We collected all of our information on our end and just have sent them over a spreadsheet with all of the names, addresses, all of that stuff. So it was fairly simple.
And the same sort of question about, well, yeah, how do you keep these people? Am I right in just talking about we're not excused from stewardship, and if this gets them in the door, then we can worry about the relationship later?
Yeah, we try and sort of not tap them until our spring day of giving or our March Madness athletics appeal. We just at least give them a break because they are giving to get something for this. So we don't want to keep tapping them for calendar year end or anything like that, but try and give them a little bit of a break. And then we actually this year had some specific gift officers reaching out to those who participated last year to try and, make sure that they keep participating this year. Obviously we have to try and make the giveaway item next year something different than pants and a sweatshirt, but just trying to keep retention up for sure.
And just to be clear, you guys have somebody doing the fulfillment, so it's not that you wind up in the shipping business in your office
Right.
like me.
Right. No, I am not doing that.
Okay. And, again, my opinion is this is not all that different from adding your voluntary contribution to registering for an alumni event, right? Anybody who's showing affinity in different ways, why can't we invite them to tack a gift onto this? Is there any opportunity for somebody to get the sweatpants without the gift? I guess the accountant in the office is probably wondering.
No.
This is the way to get it. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, this year we had the option for them to just not get the sweatpants and only give on the same page, but they have to get the sweatshirt if they want to give their $10.
Got it. I've spent too much time with John Taylor. That's why I get a cold sweat. Oh, thank you, Megan. Thank you very much for that. Amy, I think this is over to you, but tell me if it's not. I really appreciate your whole gratitude day. Would you just talk a little bit about how this came into being, and then I have some other things to look at with it?
Sure. We sort of figured this was a good balance. When we started it last year, it was sort of a balance to our day of giving in the spring. Instead, we decided to do sort of a day of gratitude, which evolved into a Give Thanks, Live Thanks campaign, which is actually currently happening right now. We launched it last week with our day of gratitude, which had an email from our president. It was signed by our president this year, which was exciting. And there's also a postcard element that went out to donors. That was, this is last year's email that had a video thank you from our annual giving chair. And it's a whole campaign. There's a website that goes along with it that includes, this year's included recipes from people around campus, like recognizable, well-known people around campus contributed like their family recipes. There's some student testimonials, just thanking donors for their support. There's a little Points of Pride flip book with, sort of things that the university is thankful for that we've different research discoveries, Nobel Prize winners, things like that. Let's see, there was some research on the importance of gratitude and different ways to show gratitude. So there's thank you notes, there's gratitude journal prompts. There's some wallpapers to like pretty up your stuff, I guess, to just be thankful for, the beauty around campus. There's a link to some meditation apps. And there was also a toolkit as well that we could share that. I mean, people could share stuff on their own social media, giving thanks to people in their lives or printing out some of the notes and sending them to people. But the toolkit could also be used by our units. We encouraged our schools and units to do posts during the course of the week to thank their donors specifically. And it's just, it's not a giving campaign. It's not like an appeal like we're used to, but it is a very nice like goodwill gesture. And we do get some very nice responses back.
It probably helps with the sweatpant donor retention, right?
We'd like to think so.
This website is amazing. All the content is there. How do you evaluate success with this?
Like I said, we do get some nice responses from people, as they reply to the email that we send out. There's not really a great way to do it, but I think when we see our retention going well, it's a good clue that we're doing the right thing and thanking. And I think people just feel like it's a nice change of pace from just getting appeal after appeal. It's something different, and it's a lot of feel good stuff. And I think, especially right now, we probably all need the reminder of the importance of gratitude and that it is like it's a positive like force in our lives.
It's great. And I have to name drop. I met Gwen Green at your place, but probably about 20 years ago. It was a thrill to see her still involved with you guys. So I clicked on this link and up came a thank you, the thank you template. So when you say watch a special thank you message, I mean, the one that I saw from her was pretty general, but were you able to use any of thank you's functionality?
I don't think for this one in particular, I don't believe that we had any sort of specific stuff.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of donors. It's a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, and you said this was now almost 2 years ago, and a lot of thank yous, bells and whistles have really accelerated, it seems like, over the last 2 years. So it's okay. But yeah, a nice combination of stuff, especially this year. I haven't given Casey a chance to talk. Anything else we need to bring up from Meliora?
No, the only thing I was just going to add was our calendar, our wall calendar that
Yeah.
we did last year, and we ended up doing it again this year. It was a tough decision, knowing the circumstances economically and everything, but so we had a wall calendar that came up. You know, as Meg and Amy have already said, that we are very highly focused on undergraduate participation. We have a loyalty program that Amy runs for us, but we wanted to send out something specifically for our undergraduate alumni that we hear so often from them, that they miss campus. They want to see the students. They want to see what it looks like now. They're really motivated by the images of what the River campus looks like. So we decided to do a wall calendar, and we were really banking on the idea that our donors from the previous fiscal year wanted something in their hand in order to renew their gift this year. So it was kind of a renewal and a stewardship piece. So it went really well. We raised, it cost about, in total, so we printed around 8,000 calendars. It cost, with postage and everything, $21,000. We raised over $125,000 from 365 unique donors. So it was a return on investment of 540% or something like that. Cost per dollar raised was 15 cents. So a really huge program for us. We did it again this year, and it is in progress right now. So we'll see how that goes, but just a really cool appeal.
I'm sorry I didn't put a visual in of it. When I go back and edit out Megan from University of Chicago's remarks, I will drop in right here a picture of the calendar so people can see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for, sorry, go ahead, Case.
No, that's it. I was just saying thank you.
Okay, no, thank you guys. And thanks for sharing, and thanks for taking the time to talk about all this stuff, and keep up the good work over there. Okay, let's bring in, I think this is slightly out of order, but from what I said it was going to be, but let's bring in some friends from the healthcare field. Kelly, I know this is out of order, but are you still there?
Oh yeah, I'm here, no problem.
How are you? Happy Thanksgiving week.
I'm doing well, thanks, same to you, Bob.
So you kind of have the corner of the store covered, which is anything sort of healthcare related. Several things that caught my eye that you guys are up to. First and foremost, your opportunity to sort of pay tribute to doctors and nurses, which I think is great any year, but is probably even particularly great this year. Can you talk a little bit about those programs, and I'll put up some pictures here?
Yeah, certainly. So actually all the examples that you have for us were basically from the tail end of Q3 to Q4 for our fiscal year, which was right during the time of COVID. So these areas, National Doctors Day, which is every year on March 30th, that's a national-wide tradition, our Giving Day, and then National Nurses Week. All three of those are campaigns that we normally do, but we had to, I'll use your word, Bob, the term of the year, pivot. And National Doctors Day, our mailing had already dropped. This is just a snapshot of one of the many pieces. We have several mailing versions that we do, an email, every week with a different type of tone and messaging, video, a landing page, and a social media strategy for National Doctors Day. But you're right, people are always making gifts during National Doctors Day in honor of their favorite physicians, but this year more than normal, the virtual response to our emails was much more increased than it had been in the past. Usually the mailing does better, but we ended up shifting people towards the end of March to our COVID relief fund for our employees and our students. So people could still make their gifts in honor of their doctors, but the fund was to a different designation. And that was basically on a crowdfunding platform, and we ended up raising $7.5 million. So that will be hard to compare in future years for apples to apples. But we still had a fantastic response, and what a time to be fundraising, unfortunately, but during a pandemic for a hospital, because people who who have been patients who haven't responded to typical solicitations in the past, they came out as crisis donors. So really will be focused on what we've learned from the Ice Bucket Challenge, things like that, is how to retain them throughout this year. So we've really had to create a communication plan for those, what we're calling COVID donors for the year, to steward them throughout the year. The nurses campaign was really great in the past. National Nurses Week in May was really just a social media campaign. But our IT and our digital communications team created this really great tribute wall mosaic online that was connected to our giving page that people could make a gift and write a thank you note. And once we published it, you could view them right there. You know, I'm sure tons of you are familiar with a lot of hospitals and primary care offices that were receiving tons of outreach and notes and signs from grateful patients and community members. So this was a nice tool for us to just have that visually available for anyone to go to. Even our employees, marketing shared it with our employees, so they had a one-stop area that they could see some notes of gratitude. But National Doctors Day, in order to recognize your doctor, you had to make a gift. That's just how the campaign works. But for the nurses campaign here, we did allow people to write a note, even if they didn't make a gift, because, you know, people it's a sensitive time, and they would comment back and say, well, can I still just write a note? I'm very grateful for everything, the work that they're doing right now. So we did allow that. And I would say 8 times out of 10, people still made a gift with the note as well. So still providing that option with them.
Well,
and our
while I'm grateful that Smartfish didn't put this website together for you, I'm a little disappointed that your in-house team figured this out themselves, because I would have loved to tell everybody that this was a nice off-the-shelf virtual tribute wall.
Sorry.
It's terrific.
Yeah, it was built in-house with inspiration from St. Luke's does a very similar mosaic. Perhaps they have, I don't know if there's an in-house tool, but perhaps that they worked with as well.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you about, I mean, I know you guys always have Hipaa sensitivities. This seems like a very Hipaa-friendly messaging, that you're not naming anybody's illness or anybody's doctor. You're just inviting them to pay tribute to somebody, whoever that might be, right?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. We're always sensitive to the information. So when it's an email or virtual campaign, we're really just sharing that. Here's one way that grateful patients and friends, always great to add in the word friends, so they know that they're part of a larger communication, a way that they can share their gratitude for their healthcare heroes in their backyard. So if you had the opportunity to read some of these notes on our actual landing page, you could see some people just share a general note of gratitude. Others got really detailed, you know, about their recovery with an illness, and it's a really nice feel-good piece. And you know what is important is that we'll be able to offer similar campaigns like this, not just during COVID. So our hope is we can continue to retain these types of donors, and we have some traction for National Nurses Week as well as National Doctors Day coming up this year.
And in case I say this is a virtual tribute wall, right? And
yes.
Will this always be on this website?
Yes, it will be on the website. I'm happy to share the link. And we only did the virtual wall for Nurses Week, but we're potentially going to do it for Doctors Day. Normally people can hand write their notes in with their gift. And we have over 1,000 physicians that are honored for Doctors Day. So the wall would be pretty large if we do Doctors just virtually, but it's something that we're considering right now.
And boy, it's awfully easy to imagine this as a thank a teacher idea,
Yeah.
like around a reunion year. Who's the teacher you still have never forgotten, who turned on the light bulb for you? It seems like this has some transferability to other grateful recipients of services, right?
Yeah, that or, you know, my prior to the hospital, I was in higher ed, and, you know, the first thing that comes to mind for me would be, you know, send off notes for future grads or advice for first year students that alumni could write notes on there, and you just send to your new or graduating students.
I think this is the one last thing.
We did that at
Go ahead,
Seattle
Margaret.
U for our virtual class of 2020. You know, it's so hard when you have to take away someone's graduation ceremony. So we did a wall that was similar, and it helps with that student to alumni transition and gives parents a place to post, which helps build that relationship for your future
Yes.
parent solicitations. Yeah, excellent shout out, Kelly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kelly, one more thing I think I have here. This was a postcard for your Giving Day, and
Yes.
I've become obsessed with people's uses of QR codes. And so this was a QR code you could scan to actually put a reminder in your calendar in Outlook. Don't forget to give on the Jefferson Giving Day.
Yeah, this was the first year that we did it. I apologize, my colleague who runs this campaign, she's not. So I can't recall what the complete metrics were, but this was the first year we did it, and we were happy with the engagement of people saving the date. And as you can see, we stuck with the date, April 2nd, and it transitioned from, it was still one day, one purpose, and our day to come together was to support our healthcare heroes and our employees and our students who needed help. The first year we raised 400,000. This year, collectively, we raised $7.5 million. So I'll let you know what ends up happening for 2021, but the date is set for April 8th already.
Yeah. Okay.
One thing I did just want to add that we're still seeing consistently, all of these campaigns really increased our foot traffic online because people are still on their phones, even though people feel a bit burnt out. They're still there, and now even more so they're coming back in the winter months. So one of the reasons we're talking about doing that virtual thank you wall for Doctor's Day is because this might be the best time to transition people to keeping digital at the top of mind rather than just mail.
Terrific. Kelly, thank you very much. This is really great stuff. And like I said, I don't always get a deluge of healthcare samples and institutions, but it's always great when I do because you guys are always doing something interesting over there. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for sharing.
You got it. Okay, let's go to Cal Arts, way out in California. Harmony Frederick. Harmony, are you out there on Pacific time? Good morning.
I am out here. Good morning.
This we might be giving people the impression this has been rehearsed. I don't actually know if these people are going to be in on the call or not. So Harmony, thank you. A couple of things. What caught my eye immediately in the samples that Harmony shared was that she said that they test subject lines in the emails that they send out, which is still a little bit beyond a lot of the other institutions I see out there. Can you talk about that for 1 second and what you think you've learned this year with some of your email subject lines?
Sure. So for us, we're really lucky. We use MyEmma as our email vendor. And so via MyEmma, they actually have really great ways that you can test email subject lines in there. So we use that tool. But then in terms of testing too, we also are just looking at what sort of words and unique sort of tags that we can really put out there. So we've tested things too with, just keeping our normal sort of, we send a biweekly email called the network. If we just use the network each time, does that increase our open rates or does it increase to use something unique and that sort of a thing too? So we go back and forth on that. But what we found is, it's about them. And so the more that you can reference, them in the message, and get them to open it because they're like, wait, this is for me and I'm looking at something here. That's what really draws them to open. But we've been very successful in terms of open rates on our special appeals and things like you're seeing here for stewardship. So about 40% to 60% open rates on those sort of messages, which is great for solicitations in particular.
So I loved your comments so much, I printed out the email that you sent me. And so resources and support for our artists was one of the most opened subject lines. There's sort of the cliche about starving artists anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So it seems really smart that you guys led with, here's what Cal Arts can do for you during a difficult year. I even made a slide of this email. I think this is the same email that we're talking about with all these embedded links about just all the different resources that you make available to your graduates.
So this was sent out on April 3rd, very early in the pandemic. And what didn't go beyond our notice is that, unfortunately, so we're a school of fine arts and performing arts. So particularly a lot of our performing artists were suffering. You know, Broadway was shut down, most performing arts facilities were shut down. So we recognized that there were a lot of people who were unemployed. That said, we also recognized that there was a huge need for student emergency aid and student emergency scholarships. And of course, as we all saw that need coming, it made sense for us to put this out into the world. But we really wanted to think about, how do we do this in a way that's sensitive to where people are? Because we know some folks will need help. We know some folks will be able to give. And then also too, how can we provide resources so that they can provide it to other friends, potentially of CalArts as well too. So that's what you're seeing here. There is a solicitation in here too, and it was a very successful solicitation from our annual giving standpoint. We ended up having about 70 donors, over $20,000 raised, and then from the major gifts angle, they leveraged this to raise another $400,000. So we did very well with this appeal. But what was great about it is one of the first things we did from an alumni relations standpoint in the pandemic is we put together a list called Economic Relief and Resources, which we still continue. So just a list of different places that they could go to find aid across the United States. And then really talked about the services that we offer and ways that they could connect with their fellow CalArtians for the support that they need. And so that's what we've been trying to do, is really show that give and take, right? You know what I mean? We're not always asking you to give, we're not always taking, we're giving back to you as well too.
Well, it's an endless goal for every institution these days, I think, to demonstrate to people this is about a relationship, right? And I we send out mailings and phone calls and emails, and they're suspicious that we're just a transaction for them. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I know the nature of the art school graduate, right? But these days, that all your logic applies to everybody, it seems to me. I have to ask, the second most opened email was the one that said, "Take a penny, leave a penny." What does that mean?
So I don't know if you all remember, but this was an appeal that was written by me. When I grew up, I would go to my neighborhood 7-Eleven and they would have a little place that said, "Take a penny, leave a penny," because a penny used to be worth something, right? And so, if you had extra pennies, you didn't want them, you put them in the thing. And if you needed an extra penny in that moment, you could take a penny. And so that was the idea of it, is that, we give and we take as we can from our community, and we take as we need. And so really encouraging people. So we have what we call Alumnix Council seed grants. And so we award seed grants to artists to work on these great collaborative projects. One of my colleagues on the call, Carolyn Jaimes, has been a big part of that over the past 4 years. And so it's an exciting sort of way that we give back to our alumni community. And we're continuing to give back in that way during the pandemic as well. Great.
Last but not least, you were the first institution that I saw use this word, Alumnix, right? And just for anybody who's not familiar with that, and I think I noticed when you participated in the exchange, the office was still alumni relations, but now it's changed. So here's one of your emails, and you can see that word showing up in a lot of places. For anybody who doesn't know, tell them about this.
Sure. And so one thing I will say is we go back and forth between alumni and alumnix, because the whole reason that we use the term alumnix is to recognize our transgender and non-binary communities. And so to say that alumnix or alumni is the right term doesn't make any sense, because you're still doing the same thing. You're creating a binary. So we go back and forth. And so alumnix is a term that we use to be more gender neutral. We could get into the whole Latin of it, where basically, everything is gendered in Latin. And our alums do. Our alums come to us with that sort of information all the time, which we know. But really what we're doing is we're hearkening back to terms like folks, for example, from the 1970s that really were started to use, and mix, like MX, that you see as a salutation as well too for folks. And so we're really honoring our transgender and non-binary community and making our alumni relations program more inclusive for everyone.
Okay, well said. And I think it's good just for everybody to raise awareness of this option in terminology, I guess. Have you found are you guys the first doing it? Am I late to this party?
Well, I think Case was going to write an article about it. They contacted us about it. And I think there are a few institutions that do use this term. We started about 3-ish years ago, I want to say, with this particular term. And it's an interesting thing, you know, across campus. You know, we have a gender identity project, really looking at pronouns and different things of that nature. So this stemmed a lot from that as well, too. But we do receive all kinds of feedback about it. There are some people, a couple weeks ago, I got an email that called us communists for using this term. But you know what? Call me a communist. I'm using the term alumnix. That's how it is. I'm sticking with it. And like I said, it goes back and forth. And it is about your identity. Like however you want to identify, that's the term that you should use. But alumnix is great. I use it in the plural. I use it in the singular. I can say I'm an alumnix of USC, for example. I can say we're all alumnix of USC. It's a wonderful term. It's I just think it's a great way to honor that community.
I appreciate it. And, you know, there's plenty of places that still haven't figured out the right use of alumna and alumni and every other conjugation of it. So, but I wanted to just give you a shout out because this was the first to see that word, and I'm quite sure it won't be the last. So somebody's got to be the innovator, right? So thanks for doing that. Anything else we ought to brag about at your place?
Oh, our place is great and looking forward. One thing that I'm really excited about that we're doing actually is so we have this huge legacy of posters at CalArts. So since the beginning of the Institute, that's how people really get messaging out into the world. And so this year is the first year we're going to use it as a stewardship tool. So we're having a custom poster created for stewardship that we're going to send out to our folks. So I'm really excited to see how that's received and hopefully report back to you all in the future about what that looks like.
I will look forward to receiving that sample. So Harmony, thanks very much. Enjoy your holiday week. Thanks for joining with your samples in the first place, and keep up all the great stuff going on out there. Okay, let's go to the University of Dayton, Obi-Toppin territory. Let's see, is Meg here, and Miranda and Emily might even be here too. Any flyers in the room?
We are here, Bob.
We are here.
Yeah, we're very excited about Obi-Toppin, so thanks so much. It was a great week last week, actually.
Well, I grew up in Cleveland. I was disappointed my Cleveland Cavaliers didn't pick him. That would have been made for a great road trip, right?
Yes. I think many people in the state of Ohio were hoping that the Cavs are going to pick him too.
Yeah, well, New York is not a bad place to visit either. At least it didn't used to be anyway. But how are you? Thanks for doing this.
We are doing really well, so thanks for having us.
So a couple things I just want to talk about at your program. One of the first things that caught my eye was your use of peer-to-peer, really social media volunteering, right? And which one of you is my authority on this subject?
So I'm the coordinator for the peer-to-peer program.
Hi, Meg. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Did you see what I made pictures of? It was just a couple of paragraphs from, I guess, sort of your guide or your orientation. Would you just talk about this?
Sure. So at UD, we have what we consider a peer-to-peer fundraising program. So we have our annual giving volunteers who are reaching out to their alumni peers and soliciting for a gift. So this is really like class leaders or agents. Just at UD, we don't solely focus on the class level. We're focused on pairing alumni and volunteers by affinity and interest. So student orgs, major, Greek life, etc. And I will say that our program started with volunteers contacting about 20 close friends, so roommates, teammates, those alumni already in their networks. And now we're asking them to expand their networks to really help us with acquisition by contacting lapsed and new donors in their outreach. So this year we're trying to be more targeted with our approach broadly in AG. And so we launched this to our volunteers and they were really excited to kind of help with that AG goal. So now they're reaching out to a larger group of 50 alumni.
And so the people who are as old as me can remember when this was kind of a class agent letter once upon a time, and you do one a year, really. And then we kind of pivoted, there's that word again, to giving days, and we wanted social media ambassadors cheering on our giving day. And now I'm seeing institutions are stringing kind of that job description into a couple of these well-placed times a year. And you guys have been very thoughtful and structured and exactly what that means. And so I have some pictures of things here. Sorry, I can't enlarge this anymore, but to me, this is about the infographic, right? And the wording here sort of sounds like the beginning of a year. This is the first time I'm going to pop up in your feed this year, just to remind you about the opportunity to support the University of Dayton. Am I getting that timing correct at all?
Yes, absolutely. So we have our volunteers reach out maybe 4 times a year, exactly like you said, around those important fiscal dates for the university. And so this is an example of kind of the philanthropic education and impact of collective giving that volunteers share. So they share university updates, that kind of philanthropic education piece, and then of course solicitation.
So here's one that comes along in advance of your Giving Day. I like how the premiere of your Giving Day video is now a thing, right?
Yes.
So you have to, it's a big announcement that we've just released our video for Giving Day. So that's one of the moments you ask people to talk to their networks. I'm sure there's all kind of presence on Giving Day itself. Then I happen to know that the holidays are a really big thing at Dayton, right?
Yes, they are a big deal here.
Yeah, do you guys still, is it the luminaries that are in the entrance to camp? I don't know if that happens this year, but is that still a tradition?
Yes.
Yeah,
I would say
so
we do a lot of decorating here, so yeah.
that's okay. It's all good. It's a very convenient way to use P2P ambassadors, right? And then you'll even let your volunteers know when a gift has been received from one of their peeps, and that becomes a message opportunity too.
Exactly. So that thank you note is kind of a great peer touch. So volunteers are notified when one of their alumni assignments make a gift. And so that, yeah, it's another opportunity for us to show some donor appreciation in there as well. It's I think it makes the volunteers feel kind of in the know, insiders getting that special update and seeing that their outreach to their peers and their alumni networks is really having an impact.
Any advice to anybody who thinks this is a good idea and wants to start it?
I would say one of the examples you had earlier there was an example of our calendar year end outreach. And I had something in there about using bullet points to kind of guide volunteers into sharing their own personal stories about the memories and really personalizing the solicitation. I would say it's a good idea to always have your messages ready to go out as you would like them to appear to their networks, but still let your volunteers feel like they can really put their personal spin and have their voice shine through. I think it makes it a lot more meaningful for them when their outreach can be, kind of playing on those feelings of nostalgia and again, just feeling like they have an impact.
I will say
if your volunteers, hey, go ahead, Miranda.
No, I was just going to say, I will say too, I'm eager to kind of share what this year's results will be. So maybe next year, Bob, we can come back because I think we've made some shifts in the program to focus a little bit more on acquisition and reacquiring lapsed donors, as Meg kind of mentioned earlier. And our volunteers are pretty excited about that. So being more intentional about who they're outreaching to through this system. So maybe we have more impressive things for next year.
It's all great. And Meg, you make me chuckle when you talk about sort of herding cats with volunteers. We invented that years ago with class agent letters when we couldn't get them to put things in their own words. And we finally said, we'll just write the letters ourselves, right, in a lot of places. And so now that pendulum is swinging back the other way. But you didn't invent that frustration. That goes back generations. One more thing that you guys had. I spotted you referenced the word retargeting, and I hope I'm not overstating its use, but that's going to be a word that we're increasingly familiar with in annual giving. And so, again, this is apologies if this is more attention than it deserves, but tell me how you're using retargeting in your digital strategy.
I will say that, so we've kind of been focusing a little bit on, I would say, Facebook ads. So the annual giving team here at UD, and many of you are doing the same thing with sending a Facebook ad to complement your mail and email. So you might send a letter and then you're doing your email and then your ads. And so what you're seeing here then is this initial Facebook ad that we had created last calendar year end to accompany a mailing that had a lengthy story about Sam in it. And then we had some emails that also kind of followed up with some more information about Sam as well. So we targeted email addresses, and then we were looking at everyone's Facebook profiles to see if they have UD as their alma mater. And then we dabbled in some about of retargeting ads. So how many people clicked on this ad? And from that, then sending them, retargeting ads, let's say in your other Google feeds or, other website sites. I will admit though, we have not seen a lot of great success. And so we've kind of pulled back from that this year. What we're finding is not enough people are clicking on the initial Facebook ad. I think you might have to have, I might misquote this, but around a minimum of 100 or something. We just weren't seeing the results on enough clicks to be able to do the retargeting as the second kind of next step of the process. So I think we're still exploring it. I'd love to hear if other schools are finding much more success than we are, but. Yeah,
and if you're certainly not alone, just kind of dipping your toe in the pool with these things. And, it was like everything else that's been a channel in what we do. I think credit to the people who tried first, but that didn't mean we always had it perfect on day one. And it takes some time just to figure out what's the best practice and what's the right sizing of it. But it doesn't mean that you're going in a wrong direction. And I think we're still just scratching the surface about all those different potential types of audiences. So, but a shout out, remember the guy who's always on the search for who's innovating stuff, who's pushing the envelope. Okay, before I get to Mills, anything else to celebrate on what you flyers are up to over there?
Good. Thank you, Bob.
Huge shout out for that peer-to-peer social program. We've been trying to get something similar started at Seattle U, and I definitely just snapshotted your slide to send to my Alumni Association folks, because that is a great description of how to motivate people and really give them clear instructions on how to get the word out on your behalf.
So thank you guys for all that. So I have two more chats left with Mills College and Oakland University. We also added the Chinese International School in Hong Kong, where it's 2 o'clock in the morning right now. So I actually already recorded my chat with Lali Law at the Chinese International School. So we don't need to cover that right now. I actually have a slide with a link to that conversation. So I should finish pretty well in the next 10 minutes or so. Let's say hi to Sarah out at Mills College. Sarah, are you there?
Hello, I am here.
How are you? Thanks for doing this.
Well. Oh yeah, this is fun. This is great to see. I love that we're doing this presentation and really picking out different campaigns. This has been great.
Me too. It's a potpourri, right? So you impressed me right off the bat. Sarah sent me a file with more than a dozen Facebook messages. And I just always like hearing what guides somebody's thinking about when and where and how and what audience and for things they do on Facebook. I still talk to plenty of places where it's their intention to do more things on Facebook, but it hasn't yet quite become reality. So not to oversimplify it, it looks like a lot of your Facebook posts are on a giving day and then some other things at other times of the year. But if you don't mind, let's walk through some of these, because I particularly like how you have different themes for the different messages you post just on Giving Day itself. So can you walk us through what we're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, these posts are, we had like certain categories basically, and we kind of mixed and matched them. So the first one is a save the date, and it's basically our countdown post, and we have a couple more of those. And this is 2 weeks leading up to Giving Tuesday, and we celebrate Mills Giving on Giving Tuesday. Then we mix in, I think it was our second post was it was a week out from the campaign, which was a video, Be Like Storm, and Storm is of course our mascot, our mascot for our athletics, which is the Cyclones. And so this is a video where, he's, I shouldn't say he, I should say they.
Mascot X. Yeah.
Yes, Mascot X. So Storm is, just basically frolicking around campus, giving high fives to students. And, in the before times, of course, this was last year. Then we also mixed in some alumni, either with videos, just basically saying why they give back to Mills, mixed in with other testimonials where alumni are holding up cards with their testimonials on them. We also mixed in, a couple of leaderboard snapshots from our Give Campus page, and that actually was when we did that closer into the campaign day and then during the campaign day, and that actually really got some heated competition. That actually worked, and what was awesome was that we got some pretty heated participation on Facebook, and then it ended up class of 1990 and class of 1992 were just neck and neck, and my class won.
There's just people out there who always want to make it interesting, right? And if you can make a game out of it, I mean, that's why reunion giving has worked for a long time, right? Because if we're going to do it, we might as well win it.
Right. I think the competition factor really worked well last year.
I mean, this is sort of one-stop shopping for a whole bunch of themes. You have the countdown in the top left. You've got sort of the novelty, fun, make people smile one with the mascot. You've got the peer-to-peer voice with fellow alumni talking about why they give to Mills and why you should too. You've got the scoreboard for people who just want to win if we're going to do this. And then talk about the stewardship one down on the bottom right there.
Yeah, so that was kind of, that's what I was speaking to earlier, was in terms of our testimonials about why alumni give back. And there are various, trying to recall, I think some focused on faculty members, others on, our, grounding in social justice, and, just basically thinking back on their Mills experience and how it's impacted their whole lives.
Good. And then you got one more thing. You had a particular brochure for your 50th reunion class. And what I thought was smart about this was just all the history and all the context that you set for that class. I mean, you explain how we're going to be counting for 5 years, right, up until your reunion. It talks about some of the recent classes and what they accomplished and what the purpose of the fundraising was for. I sometimes wonder, that reunion classes are suspicious. Like, is anybody else going for this? Are we the only ones that are buying into this idea? And I just think setting that context, that we're not asking you to do anything that generations of classes haven't done before you, and to just sort of be so deliberate in explaining how this all works just seems really smart to me. I know you do reunions for a bunch of other classes too, but I appreciated this one. Anything to say about reunion giving? Does it still endure as well as it used to these days?
Well, let's see. This we put out in November, I think November 2019, and it, we're only building. We're mostly concentrating on the class of 1970. Since the reunion was supposed to be coming up in 2020, that kind of got. But we have our 5-year campaign time, and we were actually a little slow on the 1971. So we're kind of in catch-up mode in terms of getting their attention. So we're a little bit down on giving for 1970, and then of course the pandemic. So we're behind the curve to begin with. So I don't really have, a great answer for you because we're already behind.
Yeah, but we should do a session on reunion giving in a virtual reunion world, right? Because I'm sure you're not the only one whose timeline's been thrown off. But.
Right, and we are celebrating the reunion in 2021, so on campus. So hopefully we'll catch up. But yeah, this was an explainer piece more than anything else. It was, we did have a remit, so there was a solicitation component of it, but it was more, it was just to explain the concept. And it wasn't so much that, I don't think for our school, it's so much that people or certain classes are suspicious that, you know, they're the first ones, and are you asking me to do something that somebody else isn't? I don't think that's the case for us, but it was more, you know, just people couldn't get it into their heads. They kept asking, so if I make a gift here, does that count? You know, and it's just really just laying it all out graphically, you know, explaining why, you know, yes, your gift counts during these 5 years. No matter where you give it, it's fine. It counts. So
we've almost been victims of our own success, haven't we, with our giving days and crowdfunding and all of our usual commercial messages, and then you come to your reunion year and you go, well, okay, wait a minute, I want to be sure to give my class credit, right? But can I give to the crowdfunding appeal, and can I give and get my socks and some other appeal or whatever?
Exactly.
So yes to all of it, right? It's a big tent.
Yes to all of it.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. All good stuff, and happy holiday week for you, and thanks for telling us the story of what's going on out there. Okay. With my time left, let's check in with my friend at Oakland University. Adrian, sorry to keep you waiting. Are you here?
I am here.
Oh.
You guys, you can hear me okay? I all of a sudden it started breaking up a little bit, but we'll push forward.
You're coming through great. And you know, I've known your name for years. You're an old friend, both in the exchange, and I want to. But tell me, am I pronouncing the name right? Adrian?
No, think more like Rasky, like Adrian. It's a good way to remember it.
Got it. Thank you. And the couple of things I wanted to walk through. I thought you shared some samples of particularly good messaging in the COVID world that we're all living in at the moment. So there's the food pantry reference here, and then I think I also have the student relief fund, and we can come back to these two. The thing that really caught my eye was just, I thought, the very eloquent talking about future heroes need you. So would you talk about this? These are people in your medically related programs, and sort of pointing out they're going to be the next people helping us fight the next pandemic, you could almost even say. I love this wordsmithing. Am I right that this was not a bad idea as a theme?
Yeah, so actually I will pass that along to our communications team, because we all sat kind of in a virtual room together and thought about, so we were actually having, you know, the 12th pivot of the year, right? And they were charging us to raise funds for scholarships for the, you know, next generation of basically everyone, educators, nurses, you know, medical professionals, things like that. And so we kind of sat together and thought, you know, who are these people? They're, you know, our future heroes. So it's actually called the Future Heroes Scholarship Fund that we are kind of raising funds for right now. And I don't know, that kind of stuck with us. We had a bunch of options, but Future Heroes really seemed like what we were trying to get at with that messaging. So, and I really love this picture too. You know, I just really spoke to a lot of us of like, he's looking directly at the camera, you know, but he's got this mask on, which everyone can relate to now. You know, he's in that medical setting. So,
and the whole idea of hunger on a university campus, I mean, was kind of jarring a couple years ago when I first started to see appeals making reference to it. And tell me if I'm wrong. I used to get told that this kind of theme resonated with faculty and staff in particular, who saw some of these issues firsthand, resonated with fellow students themselves. So you'd see it a lot as a senior gift kind of a cause. But anything that might have been eyebrow raising with this theme certainly only got bigger this year, right? With students with all sorts of challenges and all sorts of needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, I mean, you're not the only one who raised some eyebrows when we first put this messaging across a couple of years ago. We had a few people in our own team that were a little uncomfortable with it, I'll say, but I'm really glad that we pushed it forward. You know, it's always done really well. It does resonate with a lot of people. It's kind of weird because Oakland University is known as being kind of a more affluent suburban Detroit
university. And so we did get a couple of people that would respond back like, oh yeah, I'm sure there's lots of hungry people, ha ha ha, you know, at OU. But, you know, they had done this survey initially that said like 1 in 4 students on our campus had indicated that at some point during their time there, they had to choose between like basically eating and, you know, buying books, or there was a time when they were hungry but couldn't afford food. And that was jarring for us, you know, like to think, wow, these are the kids that we're seeing every day, or the students that we're seeing every day. And, you know, we kind of also have that attitude of, you know, oh, we're the affluent school, like that's really not a big problem on campus, and to find out that it really was. So, you know, and again, this year they shifted to, so they were delivering like care packages and food and supplies to people that couldn't come to campus anymore. And so we talked to them, and again, Kelly, I know mentioned there, the Young Alumni chapter chose this as their fund that they wanted to support. And through a lot of our surveying and talking with younger alumni, this had been a topic that had come up, that they would be interested in helping with the food pantry and things that they could see the direct support of. So that's kind of where this came about. And we've really, I mean, it's done it really well. The messaging has worked really well for us. We've got a really nice kind of cohort of repeat donors with this group as well. We went back to them in a separate email and saw, you know, a huge return rate and a huge response rate on that as well. And, you know, we're hopeful that we can, now we have a big group of donors that we can go back and say like, okay, now we'd really like to fund, you know, another position here within the food pantry, and really work on building this pantry up a little bit more and less volunteer based and maybe more like a professional staff.
So you just answered the question I was going to ask, which is there a time when you sort of get back to messaging as usual? But it sounds like you feel very comfortable that you've identified a new audience who specifically responds to things like this. And it's sort of like any crowdfunding project, really, right? And so as long as you don't get schizophrenic trying to keep all these messages straight with all these audiences, I mean, that's really a way forward with this group, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, because it was so virtual this year, we were able to push it out a little bit more than we might normally. So, but it was included also in a meal piece. You know, we did a you know, a meal piece in September, and this was one of the options that we included as a area to give back as well. So yeah, it's created a nice messaging stream for us. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much for this. I think I've got, there's a crowdfunding page for student relief. I just think your whole menu of opportunities in this whole situation was really nice. Tell your communications people.
Well, yeah, for sure. Well, we wrote all of these. They just helped us come. You know, I'm gonna toot my own horn a little bit here, but
yeah, that's okay.
But you know, they helped with the Future Hero stuff. But yeah, it was a collaboration. But yeah.
Okay, Adrian, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining in. For our final conversation, we had to go halfway around the world to speak with Lolly Law, the annual fund manager at the Chinese International School in Hong Kong. Because of the 14-hour time difference between her and Chicago, we previously recorded this chat during her workday and have inserted it here in this program. Hope you enjoyed my chat with Lolly. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So are you at the school?
Yes, I am. I'm actually in a classroom.
Okay.
Because we're having a meeting in our office. So very crowded in our office, so have to space out a little bit.
And so it always makes me smile when you share something in my exchange. So thank you for doing that. And
my pleasure.
I can remember speaking to your board. This would have been even longer ago than the last time I was there. And I think the Chinese International School was trying to teach the parents just even about the idea of giving to support the school. And I remember at the meeting, there was a little bit of surprise, like, is the school okay? do you know, should we raise the tuition? And I remember the headmaster saying, no, the school's great, but there are things we could do above and beyond what we can fund through tuition. But I will never forget that it was kind of a new idea. Yeah. So is that still are you still teaching parents, or can you assume that people understand that the school is okay, but help us do even more?
Yeah, so the annual fund established in 2009. So this is actually our 12 years of running the annual fund. I think majority of our parents' body, they know what's going on because we, in the early years, we try a lot, we make a lot of effort to make sure everybody understand why we need to do annual fund. It's not because of the school operation. We don't spend money on the school operation, but this is giving our children an extra edge in their education. So we emphasize this this idea every year. So I'm pretty sure that everybody gets it. And even new parents, we do an introductory email letter and just give them a heads up of what's going on, the giving culture in the school, and where's the money goes for the annual fund and all that. So we do have people come back to us and say they still don't understand. But throughout the years, we're very grateful to have a 200-strong advocates team within the school. They are all parents across all year level. So they are the ones who are familiar with the annual fund, and they are the advocates. So whoever have question, they will help answer. And whatever question that they don't know, they will come back to us. They will bring the person to us. And so we can have a meeting.
Yeah. So having the fellow parents explain things to the new parents or anybody who has questions, that's got to be an enormous help. Back in 2009, you didn't have anybody who had history with the annual giving, so you had to get the ball rolling before you could just assume that people understood what you were talking about. And are there any phrases, like if you say make a pledge in English, I know what you're asking me to do. Is there a Cantonese version of make a pledge?
It's not. I have to say this phrase is not that common in Chinese, but we do have a way to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is anything else that doesn't translate quite so easily as you might think?
It happens sometimes, but we need to learn to be smart. Not everything needs to literally translate to the exact meaning because we're just different culture.
Yeah.
So we need to be smart in translation as well.
There's a little bit of a parallel in the U.S. We have diverse populations, especially in the southern U.S. There's a lot of Hispanic students and Hispanic parents, who are very charitable, but just might be unfamiliar with the idea of supporting an educational institution. Yeah. So would you have any advice to my American friends who may be dealing with multicultural audiences, and maybe that we shouldn't assume that they don't want to support us, but it might be an unfamiliar idea?
Yeah, sure. I think one thing I found it very helpful is that to have an orientation. For example, every year we have new advocates, right? And we have new year heads. And don't assume everyone is on the same page because they are not. Clearly they're not. So I think to make an effort to include everyone and just teach them like a baby, like they don't know anything. And I'm sure parents would appreciate the effort of like getting to know the school and the culture and everything, because Hong Kong is a very diverse city. We have parents from 15, 20 different nationality. So everyone carries different culture background, languages and all that. So we need to make it easy for everyone. So yeah. I would say orientation. Will be very helpful.
Don't assume anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and then you have the additional benefit of the advocates and the fellow parents who can say, let me explain this to you. And it probably means even more coming from a peer, coming from a parent who's an example.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing that I think I told you is that you have a QR code, right? Very prominent in your letter. And I scanned the QR code. I think that takes you to an annual giving page on the CIS website that gives you a little more of an explanation about giving. There's probably an opportunity to make your gift there if you like. QR codes have been around a long time in the US, but we haven't used them as much as it seems like people in Asia have. But they're starting to become more understood, more accepted. People are coming up with clever ways to use them. Can you just tell me a little bit about QR codes in your appeals? And am I wrong in thinking that Asia just seems to be a lot farther down the road than the US with QR codes?
Well, we're in Hong Kong, and to be very honest, QR code was not that a popular thing. I would say a year ago.
Okay.
It become more popular this year. QR code become very popular in China a couple years ago, and that's the reason why we want to be inclusive, because we do have, you know, a percentage of mainland parents. So we want to speak their language.
Sure.
We want to make it familiar to them. We want to, you know, communicate in a way that, you know, to make it easier for them to access to information. That's why we include the QR code. But for you and your fellow US friend, I would say, you know, everyone is different. So you might, your popular things on Facebook or whatever may not be the same as our culture and our country. So I would say, you know, just keep an eye on what's going on in the market.
But so that's interesting that you're really responding to the mainlanders, right? And the fact that they have an increased awareness and familiarity with QR codes. And I think that's really reached a tipping point, you would say, in the US, where now I see appeals here that will connect to a video message or the giving page, or a current list of who's already given, or like you, the annual giving page. But just a couple of years ago, you wouldn't have seen that. And I think it's an interesting way to take a paper mailing and sort of connect it to the internet and all of your digital content, and facilitate somebody making a gift. I was in Singapore about a year ago, and I went to one of the hawker centers to get something to eat, and all of the stalls now have a QR code where you can take out your iPhone and pay your bill, you know, directly with the QR code. So it seems like it's become quickly a part of the way of life there.
In China they even have the taxi driver. Every taxi driver will have a QR code. So it become part of their lifestyle, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's coming here too. So what else, any other inspirational ideas you're having over there?
I don't know if you I don't know if you noticed that we also share our CNY card, the Chinese New Year card.
Yes.
Yeah. So throughout the year, we have two major appeal. So we launch our campaign in November. So we have our general appeal in late October, and then we will receive the first wave of donation before Christmas, around Christmas time. But after that, we can see donations getting to, you know, slow down a little bit, and we want to give it another boost again. So Chinese New Year again is a culture thing, because Chinese New Year is a time where you give red packets to people, like a good luck kind of symbol. So giving money to people is for Chinese people is like, you know, receiving when you give your monies away, you will receive blessing. People will bless you with good health and whatever it is, right? So we send those Chinese New Year cards out to all parents, whether they have given or not. For those who have given, we thank them for their giving. For those who have not yet given, we will attach with a return envelope. So to remind them, it's not too late to give. So we want to ride on this as Chinese New Year, good luck, blessing kind of culture to do another appeal.
Great catching up with you. Thank you very much. And
You're welcome.
be safe there, and tell everybody I said hi. And I hope we can visit in person again sometime soon.
Thank you, Bob.
The Columbia Independent School participated. This is always jarring to some of my college and university friends who question why you would ever put 100% participation goal out there publicly, knowing among us friends that we may never achieve it. But my point is, and it's the independent schools that seem to understand this the best, is that goal is not an accounting number, it's a marketing number. And it's sending the message that nobody is excused from the idea of everybody giving something. Even if within the office, and even if you want your boss and the president to understand, we're not going to get to 100% participation. To me, that's still better than some of the goals I see out there that this reunion class, we're trying to get to 18% participation, and that'll be a record. And I just worry that that's not compelling to our audience at the end of the day, like it is to us in the office. I mean, you know that I know that you know that I know that if we get to 18%, that's probably a record year for some of our classes. But just appreciate that sometimes what excites us in the office isn't necessarily exciting to the external audience. And so a shout out to my friends at Columbia Independent School. I believe this is a good marketing message. We're expecting everybody to raise their hand and join us with a gift. Skidmore College gets the award this year for best use of variable text in brochure. This is what the 30 years since you graduated from Skidmore looks like. Look what they've dropped in here. From 2004 to 2018, you made gifts 10 out of the last 15 years under President Glotzbach's tenure. Hope I'm saying that right. 2011, you made your largest gift to Skidmore. And then coming up in 2018, you celebrated your 30th reunion. That's all variable text that their digital printer is cleverly dropping in to that brochure. We've gotten so good at this variable text, I sometimes worry that our audience isn't even going to notice because they assume we're still using more generically produced brochures. But I appreciate Skidmore customizing everything that they did in that brochure. Anybody who's using text to give, you might like what Elon did this year. They gave you a guide to emojis. And if you want to designate your gift to one particular thing on campus or not, here's the right emoji to use in your text message to tell us what where you want your gift to go to. That may be overthinking it a bit, but I love the idea. I can just imagine people who made a gift because they could put in an emoji and designate it to their purpose. So talk to the folks at Elon if you want to talk about that. Here's one more QR code from my friends at Babson. This linked to their emergency fund page. So one more QR code shout out to the clever people over at Babson. Campbell also has one for their Giving Day back on February the 5th. And Pepperdine shared a sample of their thank you videos that are specifically being sent to first-time donors. You get a thank you, Bob. We know that you know that we know that you know that you just made your first gift to Pepperdine. Anybody who pays any attention to ThankView at all or is a ThankView user knows all the different ways people are coming up with for using personalized videos, not even just to thank people for a gift, but to ask for a gift. Or we learned in the Engage conference used by development officers to invite people to a Zoom chat by sending them a personal video. So I, like a lot of other things, Margaret, I think we're just scratching the surface with what this all might look like over the next couple of years.
Yeah, event invitations, and particularly for student philanthropy and young alumni, ThankView doesn't have to be sent via email. You can just text it to a cell phone number. So we have seen some success doing that for those, the generation that no longer wants to open their emails.
Yes, and I think this is my last one. And you know, we're right in the getting into the home stretch of the football season. And don't forget, last year at the Super Bowl, some grateful University of Wisconsin School of Veterinary Medicine dog owner made a $6 million commercial buy on the Super Bowl just to tell everybody they ought to give to the University of Wisconsin School of Veterinary Medicine. So if any of you have achieved success since then at lining up major donors to the Super Bowl to talk about your annual giving program, I'm all ears about what that playbook looks like. And otherwise, I think that's all I have for this year. Any of you who have joined me for the meeting down in Southern California in the spring, for gosh, the last 15 years or so. We were one of the first conferences that pivoted, to use that word one more time, into a Zoom mentality. We literally went from being an on-site conference to a hybrid conference to an all Zoom conference in the span of about 10 days and lived to talk about it. We're going to have the Meeting of the Minds again. I'm quite sure we will not be in Pomona again in the spring of 2021. And with that sort of liberating thought, I'm not even exactly sure what the dates are going to be for the Meeting of the Minds. But if you want to know the next thing that's on my plate, it's going to be the Meeting of the Minds sometime in the spring of 2021. Fingers crossed. Okay, Margaret, I think that's what I got. Thank you to all of our special guests. Margaret, thanks to you as always. I see the big numbers of things in the chat, which make me cringe that we couldn't get to most of them, but we will follow up, be in touch with my friends here that told you firsthand about their ideas and their strategies. Certainly Margaret and I will work on replying to anybody who had any particular questions for us. Margaret, before I say happy Thanksgiving, anything else you want to add?
I'm just floored. This was fantastic. In particularly, I showed up today looking for new ways to spin unrestricted fund solicitations, and I definitely found some of those. I feel like, you know, it's going to be a tough year with the economy and the pandemic, but there's never been an easier case for support for unrestricted funds just because of the flexibility needed for this pivoting, or as we learned at Pacific Northwest Engage from the Girl Scouts, flowing, which I really like.
And this officially concludes the Pacific Northwest Engage Conference. I want to give one more shout out to AB Unlimited Worldwide, who provided us with the very nice swag presents for our speakers, and have probably sat here a little annoyed at all the other vendors that were getting shout outs in this session. I hope you kept a list of those, Margaret, because we need them as sponsors next time we put on that conference. So AB Unlimited Worldwide, the terrific swag provider that we love as part of the Pacific Northwest Engage Conference. Okay, enough shameless promotion. Margaret, happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the week up at the cabin there. Let me know how the chicken turns out.
Yes.
I'll let you know how the duck turns out.
Yes, thank you all so much.
Yeah, be safe and enjoy the holiday week, and hope to see you somewhere in person or on Zoom again sometime soon. Thanks very much.